Hello, and welcome to the Box Angeles podcast. I am the host of said podcast, Mike Boxelder. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, let's see how many times I can say podcast. Hey, please go to the YouTube channel, boxangeles.com/YouTube. Hit the subscribe button there. I've got full videos of all the new episodes. I got clips of the old episodes. It's a pile of content from really interesting, talented, funny people. I think it's a great resource for you to have, so I'd love for you to subscribe over there. Who's my guest this week? It's casting director Michelle Lewitt. Michelle's worked on big movies like Angels and Demons, Transformers, The Holiday, The Da Vinci Code. She works more so on independent movies now, but she's been in this business for so long. This was a really insightful conversation, and it was a bit of a therapy session for me. I'm going to be honest. I vented some frustrations I've had recently with her. She did great talking me off the ledge. Not that I needed it, but it kind of went there, which I'm going to be honest, I wasn't expecting. I've talked recently with casting directors about how they kind of are like therapists, so this was kind of ironic. But Michelle loves actors. She got into this kind of on a whim because she loves actors. So I loved hearing about that entry point for her and how she just sort of jumped in feet first. It was a really cool story. You're going to love that. This was a really insightful conversation. Michelle has been doing this for so long, like I said, and we've been trying to schedule this for so long, so I'm so glad we finally were able to do it because I think it was a really fun conversation, and I think we're going to be friends. She didn't say that, but I'm going to go out on a ledge and say that I think we're going to be friends now. So without further ado, I give you...
Hi, my name is Michelle Lewitt, and I'm a casting director, and we're going to talk about casting. How about that?
Hi, Michelle.
Unless you want to talk about basketball, we can talk about that.
Thank you for coming down. We were just talking about it. I think initially scheduled this pre-COVID, and we went back and forth for a while, and then
then that's literally 3 years.
Oh yeah, easily. And then you talked to me about like during COVID trying to encourage me to do it again, and I was like, I'll think about it. I'll think about it.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad we finally made it happen.
It's perfect timing. I love it.
Also, you were talking about beforehand how you hate slates right before you slated.
Yes.
Why do you hate slates?
Because I'll tell you, that's a great question, and I'm going to tell you why. Probably because they feel inorganic to me.
Okay.
And I'm all about authenticity. That's a large part of how I perform my casting stuff. Is just I'm all about authenticity in what I do and what the actors bring and material. I typically don't respond to material if I don't feel there's a level of interesting authenticity there, whether it be the story or the characters or whatever. So that's probably why. So literally, while I may have filmmakers or producers who are like, make sure they have XYZ in the slates and all this kind of stuff, I literally don't care if the actor slates or not, because I'm just like, let's get to the acting. I want to say, what are you bringing? Yeah. So it's really, all of that is just for data purposes, so I know what your name is, because if you're good, then I do want to know what your name is. But yeah, that's why I don't like slates, because it feels fake.
But you do make people slate.
Yeah, I do. But when they, you know what? I bet if someone went back and looked at my instructions on my audition requests, I may say like, yeah, just say your name and where you're based or something like that. Like, I don't care about all the other stuff.
Sure.
You know?
That's funny. I like that you hate it, but you still make people do it.
I do it because my producers.
I know, but it's...
They want to see it. Let's say I've started to produce more.
That's kind of the industry in a microcosm, though.
Yeah, totally. Like. But I've started to produce more, so maybe on the stuff that I'm producing, I'll just be like, just act. Change
it from the inside.
Yeah.
This has come up a few times because I've had a few casting directors on recently. Do you like when sort of actors play with the slate? Does that help the quote-unquote inorganic, or would you say inauthentic version?
Yeah, I actually do like, and even not play, but if they do something sort of interesting or with the intention to connect in a genuine way, whatever that is. Like sometimes, like I was casting a movie that was set in the landscape of the financial field, and one of the actors literally has like a master's in finance, and so he like talked about that in his slate in a very organic, it wasn't like trying too hard or anything like that, and it was very interesting. So yeah, I guess maybe part of it is sometimes actors are uncomfortable doing slates, and I will pick up on that instantly, and so I don't like to watch anyway. I mean, not even just in casting and acting. Who likes to watch someone do something uncomfortable, right? It's like kind of makes you cringe.
It's that secondhand embarrassment.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
So perhaps, if an actor is uncomfortable doing that, I pick up on it maybe.
Do you like them doing their character in the slate though, or no?
I'm sort of mixed. on that only because I really like seeing the juxtaposition of who a human being is versus what they're bringing to the performance. I know this is a very debatable topic and controversial because some people are like, well, if you're an Australian doing an American accent, if you do your slate in your Aussie accent, then, the casting director, whoever's watching the tape, thinks they can hear it in the audition, when in reality it's just because they had it in their mind like, oh, they're really Australian, so they're like looking for those little I don't know about that, honestly. You're gonna hear me say this a lot. It's good acting is good acting, right? So even if your accent slips, in my opinion, if you brought what we're looking for in regards to that character and bringing the story to life, we'll get you a dialect coach. It's fine.
I don't do accents, so I don't relate at all. But I did just read Sharon Bialy's book. I don't know if you've read that.
I haven't
and
yet.
She had a few chapters on accents, and she said she prefers people to just come in and do the accent of the role and slate in that accent to not throw the people off and be like, oh wait, they're not that, because they get hyper focused on that.
Yeah, and that's fair if you have filmmakers that get influenced in that way. Me personally, as a casting director, I'm not going to be influenced by something like that, but perhaps that's a casting thing, and several of my casting colleagues we're not necessarily going to get influenced by that. But yes, I have had filmmakers that would be influenced by that, and that even goes for like attire and appearance. Like there have been times there's been an actor that I feel very strongly embodies the role really well, but because of how they look, maybe it's sort of against type or what one might think. And so my filmmakers might be kind of like, I don't know. They don't really look like blah, 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 blah. And I will literally call up that actor's agent and be like, okay, I need them to do it again, but I need them to look like this, to dress like this. And I will literally just do a costume change, wardrobe change, maybe makeup, hair change. And it's like the same read, but they look different, and then it gets received. That same performance gets received differently by the filmmaker.
Wait, so how often do you do that? If you really like their take, or you sent it to the producers and the producers liked it but weren't completely
if the
sold?
producers are on the fence, and I know that this person could knock this role out of the park, like could definitely be a very strong candidate to be cast in the film, I will definitely have them redo it.
How often does that happen, though, where they come not dressed to the character? That seems like nonsense to me. Why would you not dress at least towards that direction?
Because they're, again, on the flip side of the coin, there's just so many things that we're going to talk about, both sides. This is very exciting. So some people say, well, like, just because you're going in for a doctor doesn't mean that you have to have a stethoscope and scrubs,
of course,
or
not
whatever.
Props, but...
Right, but even just like, you don't need to be in scrubs if you're a doctor, or wear a white lab coat if you're a scientist or whatever. So I think actors have been given real mixed messages. All right, so I don't blame y'all for being real insecure and nervous about what to do or not to do in auditions and self tapes. So honestly, my best advice regarding that, even though you didn't ask that, but we'll just jump into it because it's an interesting topic. Just do what your gut and your intuition is guiding you to do, because that is going to automatically default to your most authentic self. And look, if the casting director or the producer or filmmaker, whoever is laying eyes on it, the director, wants to change something about that, then we'll let you know in theory. Or if not, then maybe y'all just aren't aligned in what the creative vision is or how you operate or whatever. But I'm just a firm believer in what is meant for you cannot pass you by. So if you're just constantly bringing your best work and your best self to every audition, you are going to line up with whatever job you're meant to get. Yeah. I talk about the casting gods all the time. And the casting, in 20, almost 5 years of casting, the casting gods have never let me down. So
that's a hell of a run right there.
Yeah.
That's a great conversion rate.
I know. I like it.
Back to the dress thing, though, like, I'm shocked to hear you say it happens at all, because I'm like, even down to like a color, you should know what sort of like.
I mean, if someone,
actors should have that instinct, I think.
Maybe, but there are some actors who really are just like artistes and real thespians, and they'll just show up in their whatever they're wearing in their hair, and like, let's say they're supposed to play an attorney who typically, if we're going to go with stereotypes, attorneys are pretty clean cut. They might wear a suit or have clean shaven face or hair or whatever it is. And, their hair is done and all that. And someone might show up pretty scruffy and not necessarily wearing a blazer or something like that. So I think I don't know, maybe it's the school of acting that people have come from. There's an older generation, there's a newer generation, whatever it is. But yeah, there have been times, or even like makeup, right? In terms, sometimes female actors look a little bit more mature than what I'm asking for. And so I have to say, can we tone down the makeup because this is supposed to be a 14-year-old tomboy or whatever it is.
Yeah. Wait, that was backwards in my head. More mature women wear more makeup?
No, a woman might look more mature because of the type of makeup they're wearing.
I see.
Let's say if it's very prominent lipstick and eye makeup, and it makes them look more mature.
Oh, I see.
When I don't want that maturity for that particular role.
I see.
Yeah.
Makeup doesn't compute with me. But I'm going to go back to the dress thing. I will say this, though. I think it's interesting that actors would come not even towards the direction of the character.
It happens.
But for me, commercially, occasionally I'll just be like, you know what, I'm going to just wear this. Mm-hmm. And I talked to some actors. I was at a casting meet up a couple weeks ago. I don't know, Jessica Sherman and Jen Preston. I don't know if you know them. They did a casting meetup, and I talked to some people, some other actors, and we were like, isn't it funny, like, if you wear something completely, if it's like a construction worker and you just wear something completely not that, you pretty much, it feels like I get a call back a lot just because I stick out as I'm not the one guy not wearing flannel. And so we get rewarded for breaking the rules, I feel like.
So, yes.
Because we stick out. And so it's like, maybe partly it's that, too, just trying to stick out.
Well, and that starts a whole new conversation.
Fire it.
I love Jessica Sherman, by the way. I love that you went. Did you do the Tipsy casting?
Yeah, I was a guest on their on Tipsy casting a couple weeks ago.
My best friend Sarah did that not too long ago. Anyways, so we were just talking about, sticking out. Yeah. So, I mean, that plays into the topic of authenticity and being organic again. If you make a bold choice in your audition simply to make a bold choice because you want to get their attention, we're going to pick up on that right away. It's like there are so many parallels to like the dating world. If someone tries too hard to impress you, you're immediately like repelled, like, nope, that's hard pass right there. Yeah. It's the same thing in casting. We can pick up on if an actor is trying too hard, or maybe, they're just a quirky individual and they make bold choices organically. We're going to be able to tell. Yeah. We know. So sometimes when you're memorable and you do stand out from the rest, if it comes from an authentic and organic place, it's absolutely going to catch our eye. Yeah. 100%. Totally agree with that.
Yeah. I feel like I talked about this before in the podcast, but it's so funny. Like, dating's come up quite a bit lately, but when people reach out to me about doing my podcast, I'm much less inclined to bring them on because I'm like, I didn't have to try to get that person. I'm much
thrill of the chase.
Yeah, weirdly, and it's so much, it doesn't compute for me because it's so much work scheduling people. I mean, we've been emailing for 5 years or whatever, so like that's just one example. But you actually came. I've emailed with people for a very long time and then got ghosted multiple times. You know?
What I mean? I really wanted to do. There is.
But I'm just saying, so to your point, it is interesting when people are trying to impress you, how it turns you off.
Oh, yeah.
And that's applicable even to me in this podcast as well. Like,
no, totally.
But to that point more, like, I find actors to be very self-sabotaging. Do you get that on your side as well? Do you think a lot of actors set themselves up to fail so that they don't have to get out of their comfort zone and really be vulnerable or really want to succeed and be like, I didn't succeed because of blah, blah, blah. And they just use it as sort of a self-sabotaging mechanism, a lot of this stuff?
That sounds like a very human thing. That is not just an actor thing. So, yes, I agree with what you just said, but that's just humans in general.
Really? You think that's human in general?
That there's fear of success, there's fear of failure and self-sabotage. Absolutely.
I think the first two, but like dressing wrong for the audition seems like self-sabotage. You know what I mean?
Maybe subconsciously. The world of acting is
not memorizing lines seems like self-sabotage. You know what I mean? Not putting in the work, not coming prepared.
Right, but is that conscious or subconscious? Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
like, what actor, I mean, getting into acting is a full commitment. It requires effort. So if you get into acting and you don't put in the effort, like memorizing lines or being off book or just even prepping the material, like I feel like that's, I don't know. Why would you do that? Why would anyone want to get into an industry that is this competitive if you're not willing to put in a certain amount of effort like that? Yeah, I don't know.
I think my thought is probably because they're hoping that. I think a lot of wow, we're getting into like societal talk. I think our government as a whole does the lottery, right? Mm-hmm. And the lottery targets the wrong people. It targets the poor people, and it's governments. It does. I mean,
no, you're not wrong.
And government sponsors this, right?
Sure.
So people on that side think, oh, I can just get lucky, and goddamn, there's a fly in here, and it's going to annoy me to no end. People on that side think, oh, I can just get lucky. I don't have to work hard and tie up my bootstraps. I can get lucky. And I think actors might think, that's not to say, okay. Anyways, but I think actors are a little bit that way too, in the sense that, oh, maybe I can just throw mud at this and hope one thing sticks. You know what I mean? Like maybe I can catch lightning in a bottle on one thing by just sort of
Well, I guess then that comes down to the motivation for becoming an actor, because I think anyone that becomes an actor just for some sort of result, as in fame or a certain amount of financial success or whatever, you're already setting yourself up for some type of disappointment, because acting, the craft itself, if you love it, that's why you're doing it, right? And people often get bad advice in regards to this industry. Oh, you're so pretty, you should go act. Do you know what I'm saying? Or
that's the advice I got.
Yeah, I can imagine that. But or even, about someone's appearances and why they should, be in this or that. And it's usually said by someone who's not in the industry. Right. So I guess it depends on people's motivation for even getting into this industry, because if it's sort of a superficial kind of a reason, you're set up for some interesting lessons and disappointment.
I think a lot of people are, though, right? Like, let's be honest, right?
I don't gravitate towards, like, maybe I'm just, attracting the real artists who are in it for,
that's good to hear.
I don't know. I really come into contact with a lot of really talented, really diligent, really passionate actors that love the craft of acting. Yeah. That, for me, in my experience, that is a vast majority of people that I come across in regards to when I'm casting films. Look, do I get a million emails from people who just want to be famous? And I mean, it's part of why I deleted my social media, because of the onslaught of people just being like, hey, put me in a movie.
Right.
Yeah. So I removed that part. And regarding the emails, I just, that part isn't really in my experience in a dominant way.
Yeah.
I definitely focus more on the people that are really committed to the craft, because that's the only reason that I'm in this, is because I love actors and I love the craft of acting and I love the craft of filmmaking, Yeah. So actors and directors are really why I stay in this, because I love collaborating with those two professions. And so, I want actors to succeed. I want to be aware of talented actors, because for me it's enjoyable and I love being able to put them in a role that they can really show off their talent.
Yeah.
That's why I do it.
Well, to that point, I don't know much about you. What is your background like? Where did your love for actors and directors come from? Did you always aspire to be a casting director?
No, I didn't.
Were you
an
actor at one point?
No, absolutely not. I don't like being in front of the camera. So the fact that we're
your slate gave me that vibe. You're not going to book this audition. I'm sorry.
No, I never had the desire to.
Oh, I love your manicure, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we got to have fun. So we just do weird nails.
Who's we?
Me, myself, and I. I don't know. Me and my higher self. I don't know.
Okay. Anyways, continue. Where are you? What's your story?
Born and raised in LA.
Oh, cool.
My passion is really in sports, and specifically basketball. I've been playing basketball since I was yay high, and I originally wanted to be a collegiate basketball coach. There was a very legendary coach named Pat Summitt.
Of course, Tennessee Volunteers.
And so I was like, I want to be the next Pat Summitt.
Okay.
So I went to college for a brief moment to pursue that avenue. And
Where'd you go?
I went to a college called Azusa Pacific University
Beautiful.
for a millisecond. But as I started sort of researching what collegiate coaches do and whatnot, there's a lot of politics in college coaching,
Of course.
right? So when
NCAA
you're
recruiting.
yeah, oh well, and that's a whole different thing. But it's like when you're winning, they love you. When you're losing, they fire you, right? And for me, because I just love the sport so much, and I love playing and whatnot, I love coaching it. I didn't want politics like getting into something that I really just love as a sport. And so I was like, maybe this isn't going to be for me if I'm going to be like too emotionally attached. And so I was just kind of having a conversation with a dear friend of mine. And he was like, okay, look, if you could do anything, barring what your parents think, barring money, barring education, like if you could just do anything, what would you do? And at that time, I mean, I remember it very well. It just flew out of my mouth, casting director. That's what his face did. That's exactly
I
what
was shocked. Yes.
I, too, was shocked because I didn't really know what it was.
Sure.
And he kind of looked at me, he's like, okay, then go do that. So clearly something, I don't know, my intuition, my higher self, whatever, was channeling through me. Casting director flew out of my mouth. So I was like, all right, now this is a long time ago. This is like back in 1999. So
Wow.
yeah. So I went to the bookstore and I got a book on casting.
Oh, okay. Sharon
Yeah.
Bialy's book.
Yeah, right. That was long before that.
But wait, just pause real quick.
Yeah.
Did you play college basketball?
No, I didn't. Actually,
You
I got
went to specifically coach at Azusa.
to get education to get a degree to then pursue
Got it.
coaching.
But you didn't
Yeah.
actually play college basketball.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
That's actually what started me coaching. Was I got injured this summer before my senior year, and my coach at the time said, "I think you'll be really good at
got it.
coaching."
Okay.
And so then I coached the junior high team. Whatever. That's a whole nother
Button
world.
that up. Now.
Yeah.
Okay. You're
Yeah.
at Azusa. You say you want to be a casting director.
Yeah. And so I go to the Barnes and Noble,
Okay.
and I get a book on casting.
Okay.
And I quickly learned there are lots of different types of casting. There's commercial casting, theater casting, feature film casting, episodic casting. I grew up watching movies. My mom loved movies. I was like, I'm definitely a feature film girl. So I went back to Barnes & Noble and I got a book on all the top feature film casting directors in the industry. And I wrote them all a letter. I did not send an
Wow.
email. This is like way before
This
email
is while
was-
you were a college student.
Yeah.
Wow,
Well,
okay.
for like I very quickly exited that, but after a semester. But
But you were doing. You
Yeah, I
went to
was
the Barnes
doing
and
the
Noble
thing.
while you were at
Yes.
this. Yeah,
Yes,
okay,
that's
okay,
correct.
Yeah.
So I wrote them all a letter and basically said, and I like mailed it with like a stamp, like at the post office. I said, in the same way I assess the skills and talents of basketball players to assemble a successful team, I want to redirect that intuition to assessing the skills and talents of actors to assemble a successful cast. And I got a couple interviews off of that letter.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I thought it was a good parallel. No, they bought it.
I mean, it is. It's very good. It's great. I'm just impressed that anyone would take a random letter from a random person and.
It was 1999. Things
I'm
were very
aware, but
different.
I see the irony in like you close your social media because too many people were reaching out to you.
I know, right?
And then you got,
It is ironic. But like I went in and I interviewed with one of the interviews I got was with legendary casting directors Jane Jenkins and Janet Hershenson, who
Yep.
have like cast every movie anyone has ever loved, from Princess Bride to Stand by Me, Jurassic Park, yada yada. I mean, their resume is as long as I am tall. But I went in and interviewed with them, and it went really well. And then they said, we really like you, but we already have an assistant. She was sitting out there. So all we could offer you is an unpaid internship if you want that. And I was like, yes, I do. I do
Wow.
want that. So that was like on a Friday. I started my internship on a Monday. And 2 weeks later, they fired their assistant and hired me as their new assistant.
Oh my gosh, I got so many questions. Okay, hold on. You got a few responses back. You only
Mm-hmm.
did the one interview and took it.
I think I did 3 interviews, but the minute I interviewed with Jane and Janet, I knew
Got it.
they were the ones.
And the moment you got these responses, you dropped out of college and came back to LA, basically. I don't know where Azusa is, to be clear. I'm picturing New Mexico.
It's Azusa, Mexico.
Where is Azusa?
It's like 40 minutes down the 210. It's like
Oh,
out
it's in
by
LA.
San
Okay, that
Dimas.
helps.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
No, I was local.
Okay, got it. And did you have any family growing up here in the industry at all?
No.
Interesting. So it is really weird that you picked out casting director out of your head.
Totally. I mean, the only thing that I can think because I've been asked a lot of questions about my origin story, right? Back when I was in high school, one time the theater teacher asked me to help her with auditions for the school play.
Oh,
it didn't occur to me at that time that was casting,
Yeah,
right?
planting it in your head.
Yeah, but it's just, I mean, look, my general sort of talent is assessing others' abilities. So whatever arena that's in, whether that's in basketball or casting or anything else, like that's sort of, I just have a good nose for talent in general.
Yeah. You mentioned what spawned this question was you said you have always loved actors. Was there something more there as far as your love for you said you watched a lot of movies with your mom and stuff.
Yeah,
was there any
I
particular
just
actor or you've just
I've come to love it. So as I started to I mean I'd never been in it before, so as I'm starting to learn what the world of casting looks like and what we do when we cast actors and the audition process, that was such an interesting thing to learn about, and I'm so grateful that I learned from Jane and Janet because they were just incredible mentors in that way, in not only offering what their expert insight was, but letting me cultivate my own taste and my own intuition and all that. I've come to love actors because for years that's what we did. I was in a room with an actor, we would read a scene, and then I would direct them, and we would collaborate in a very artistic and creative way. And it made me love what y'all do,
Yeah. So how long were you as an assistant with them for?
Oof, that's a great question because I was with them for 10 years and I worked my way up from casting assistant to casting associate to casting director, and eventually we were partners, and then I went off and popped out a couple of kids, and they went off and retired, and that's when I
went on your own.
Went on my own, yeah, with their blessing. I mean, I still keep in touch with Jane, and I'm forever grateful for them.
Okay, I have to ask you this because I know Jessica Sherman is really passionate about this. Was it easy when you went out on your own to find new work?
Yes.
It was?
Yeah.
Talk about that. Did they help pass off some of their stuff?
Oh, Jane especially, and Janet and Michael, who were the other two entities. Michael was our business affairs manager within the company. They were very kind about referring and stuff like that, but especially Jane when she just really didn't have a lot of interest in continuing casting and pursuing other things. If people would call her, she'd be like, go call Michelle.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so that's great. And then I feel like I built some nice relationships when I was with the casting company. And then another thing is I kind of pivoted. I did all kinds of films when I was with Jane and Janet, but when I pivoted to my own shingle, it was definitely a focus on indie films. I was not interested in pursuing the studio life because I want to be able to spend time with my kids.
Yeah.
And studio casting is just very different. So I definitely was very focused on the indie world, and I had some good relationships there, and then those relationships cultivated other relationships, and fortunately I'm at a point where it's a lot of repeat business and a lot of word of mouth and all that kind of thing.
Right, you just grab onto those producers, and then they sort of come back to you whenever they make something.
Absolutely,
right? Yeah. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Did you find a change much after COVID? Was it harder, easier?
To get work?
To the whole process. Like, I know a lot of projects started pre-COVID and then got delayed, and you might have been strung along if they recast it or anything, maybe? No? Yes?
Yeah, I didn't really get strung. I mean, I had that happen. Like, there was a movie I did that I'm very proud of that cast. It's called Hypochondriac, and those filmmakers are really wonderful people that I still stay in touch with and still do movies for, and they just sort of kept me in the loop about what was going on, and it was really nice to get a call to say, hey, it was like more, I guess we started it in 2020, and then we sort of picked it back up in 2021, and I was very happy to get that call that we were continuing. So again, I've just been very fortunate to work with very transparent and communicative filmmakers. And anytime I have worked with filmmakers that maybe aren't so much, we just don't work together again. We're just not in alignment, and that's fine. I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and I own that.
That can't be true. You're like a lovely mint tea.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm like a grumpy Earl Grey.
Oh, I love Earl Grey. Anyway.
I'm determined I'm more grumpy in this version of the podcast.
Okay.
Pre-COVID, I was all laughing at everything, and now I'm more cynical. I'm like,
A little bit more of I'm a curmudgeon.
I used to be a peppermint, and now I'm Earl Grey.
This is very
cloudy and dark.
Yes. No, so I feel like if there's ever a collaboration that maybe was not enjoyable, we just don't collaborate again, and that's okay.
I love that. Makes sense. It's a blessing
like
too that you can.
It's like life.
Right, but it's also a blessing you can pick that too, right? Like
I'm very
if I have
fortunate.
representation that I don't necessarily click with, I'm not. People aren't banging down the door to represent me. You know?
Yeah. No, I feel you.
You're in a great situation there.
Yeah. No, I'm very appreciative for my situation. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. Cool. So when you are casting stuff, what do you look for, or how do you find like new talent? How do you keep your pool fresh with new talent?
That's a great question. It's kind of just it's a myriad of ways. Part of it is being open-minded. So when we go through the submissions, there are obviously going to be a lot of familiar faces and then a lot of unfamiliar faces, and it's like, how open are we to someone we haven't read before, someone who's not repped by a talent agent that we are familiar with. It's really just being open-minded. It's also getting out there. I mean, going to see theater productions. It's watching stuff. It's being open-minded and having open eyes, knowing that talent can show up anywhere. So that's really, for me, how it works.
So, like, what about the other side? What if I'm an actor that wants to get in front of you? If you've got no social media, do you have a preference to, other than having a super cool podcast where you have them come to you?
Really, it's
do you
just
do workshops. Sorry,
I don't do workshops. Okay. I do. I'll do seminars where like I speak to people, but I don't do like the workshops where people can come read a scene for me. So it's really getting in front of me would be, I have a role that you're right for, and I give you an opportunity, or every once in a while the universe aligns it so that I happen to see your cold email that you sent me, and I give you an opportunity, or whatever the case is. I mean, sometimes I'll meet people and they'll just say, oh, well, my neighbor is an actor and da-da-da, or my niece or my this or my that, and whatever it is. And if I feel so inclined, I'll be like, here's my email. You send me the material. And if they have a look that I need for a particular role at that time, I will give an opportunity. I mean, that's one of the plus sides to having self-tape now, as the majority of the first round of auditions, is I can give so many more opportunities to performers as opposed to before. If I'm in a room, I can only see so many actors a day in the room. Right. Now, do I miss many aspects of that in-person auditioning? Absolutely. But again, I get to see more talent. I can see, 80, 90, 100 or more actors for a particular role, whereas I might only seen 30 or 40 or 50 before.
Are you watching all of those though, from front to back?
I guess.
Do you watch the entire thing?
I try to. It depends.
Ooh, I feel like you're being honest and you don't watch the whole thing.
On some, but not on all.
I feel like every casting director I've talked to is like, I watch front to back.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm just trying to be candid here. I mean, look.
No, thank you.
If someone is wildly wrong for the role, then I have to be judicious about my time. However, if someone is wildly wrong for the role in terms of sensibility or look, it depends on the director too. Is the director looking for a very specific look, or can I be more creative and think outside the box on what this particular character looks like in terms of the human that embodies them? So if they're, let's say, wildly wrong based on what my director has said that they want for this role, but the acting is really interesting or compelling or whatever, then maybe I'll have them read a different role.
Right.
Or maybe I'll send an email to the agent saying, they were very interesting. They're not right for this, but I really liked what they did. And am I going to watch? Look, I'm not a casting director that will send you like 12 pages of sides for a first round audition. I'm not going to do that. So for a lot of reasons. So if it's a first round, I'm usually only sending one scene or maybe two short scenes if I need to see a particular emotional shift, right? Or your range in a certain way. But for that first round of auditions, I'm not giving 8 minutes of material. I'm not even giving 5 minutes of material.
I love that.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, go.
Are you doing a lot of callbacks though in COVID? I feel like post-COVID, there's not a lot.
Yeah.
Of callbacks.
It depends on the filmmaker. I do a lot of callbacks. Absolutely.
Okay.
Because I'm seeing. Look, if I send my filmmakers 80 self-tapes, majority of the time we're doing 15 to 20 callbacks, 10 to 20 callbacks, something like that. So for the first round, yes, I'm typically watching the vast majority of the audition.
Huh.
But, if again, it depends on the situation. But I try to watch it all. And it's not real hard for me to watch it all because it's usually only a 1 to 2.5 minute
Which is smart.
audition.
You're setting yourself up for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, okay, so run me through your number breakdown here. So you're casting a movie, I don't know, a lead or something. You see 80 for the lead on the first round?
At least.
Okay. And then 80 to 100.
At least, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. And then even in the indie space, though, they're not more particular. They're not like we want. They don't want you limiting it from the beginning, even.
Well, I'm the one. That first round, my filmmakers are not seeing everyone in that first round.
Of course.
I'm curating it, right? So I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and so I like a lot of options.
I love that.
And I really want to make sure I'm getting the best of the best.
Okay. I don't ask about leads much because I don't audition for leads, but so I'm thrown off a little bit. But okay, 80 to 100 leads for a feature film. Mm-hmm. You call back 15 to 20 of them. Mm-hmm. This is just for you to do the callback, or do you have them sit in?
Well, the 80, depending on the filmmaker. Look, some filmmakers are like, don't send me more than 30 choices, and then I got to be really judicious about what I'm doing. But if my filmmakers have watched 80 self-tapes,
They're not going to watch 80.
They might watch 80.
Oh, really?
Because I watched 1,000.
Oh, wait. Okay. Hold on. Okay. Let's start over.
We're down a math rabbit hole.
Okay. So you're going to see 1,000 for one?
Oh, were you talking about just watching auditions?
I was watching auditions, not seeing the submissions.
It can be anywhere. Oh.
The submissions, headshots, you're seeing 1,000 headshots. At least 5,000 headshots.
Yeah, I was going to say it's going to be 2,000 to 5,000.
Then you call in for a self-tape, 80 to 100.
No, probably more than that.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Because you have to keep in mind, some people are not going to be available. Some people are going to pass. Some people, so let me think of so on one of the last films that I cast, let's say I do 400 audition requests.
That's crazy. I've never heard of
Maybe.
that high. I swear, I didn't know anyone went that high.
Well, if I have 5,000, I don't know. Look, so when I go through all of the...
Tell me this. I'm interested in this.
Maybe I'm a weirdo. My casting colleagues are going to be like, what is Michelle saying?
It's a lot.
I told you, I love actors. So when I'm going through all of those thousands of submissions, I'm just going off of intuition when I click the little, one
Yep.
of who's, who I want to audition. Then when I get to the end of that, I go and look at how many people I selected, and I re-go through it, and I look, and I was like, what was I thinking when I did that?
Yep.
Or whatever. And so then that gets curated even more.
Yep.
And then based off of that second pass-through, I send out those audition requests.
And do you normally have a number you're looking for there? Is it 400, 200?
Yeah, because, and it also depends on how specific my filmmaker is, because I have some that are real open-minded, so I'm going to give them every flavor from vanilla, strawberry, rocky road, whatever. And then there are some that have a very limited palette, and I know I'm only looking for this.
I see. So it's not always the same.
No.
It's not.
I guess I'm just thinking, so the last couple films that I did, I had very open-minded filmmakers with very wide windows of what we can do in terms of sensibility. So it was a very big net that I was throwing out there.
Okay, so let's run through one of those nets.
Okay.
5,000 submissions probably.
Yeah.
You asked for 400 auditions?
Yes. And
how many do you get?
Probably somewhere around 3 to 340.
Oh my goodness, this is insane. That's so many. But then you're watching the majority of those tapes.
Yes.
That's got to be 10 hours, right? If it's
more than that.
Yeah. Okay, amazing.
Yeah, when I first put out a breakdown, my friends know, this is why, and my kids know too, when I'm just sitting there watching hours and hours of auditions.
You're in your flow state.
Yeah.
Okay, so then
for sure.
You get 300 back.
Mm-hmm.
How many of those 300 do you call in for a callback?
from those 300, I'm showing well, again, it depends on the producers, but I'm usually showing somewhere around 50 to 100 to my people.
The producer?
Yeah, but I don't send it like that. It would be overwhelming. I'm like, here's your first batch of 25. Here's your second batch of 25. Because of those 25, they're going to call back 2 to 8.
Interesting. Okay, to be clear, I had a casting associate on, Gianna Butler, recently, and she said they sent 15 to the producers, and Jessica Sherman thought that was insanely too many. And it sounds like you're sending.
But is that TV?
That's TV.
Yeah, it's totally different in TV.
But she thinks that's too many, and she does film. So I'm trying to get it.
And that's look. I don't think Jess and I have any overlapping. Like, we don't work for the same type of filmmakers, so maybe they.
I love this. This is crazy though. So you send batches of 25, 100. Essentially, you'll send to them.
Yeah.
4 batches of 25.
Let's say
100.
75 to 100. Yeah.
Okay. And then they pick which ones of those they want you to call back.
Yes.
For you or for you and them at the same time as like a Zoom call?
Every callback I get, I will show to them because they already laid eyes on that human.
So these producers are really involved.
Very.
Wow.
That's who I like to work with, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is that? It's
because
more collaborative?
it feels more collaborative and it feels more creative. Those types of producers usually actually want my input as well. Look, there are different. Back when I did a few projects with Rob Reiner, when I was working with Jane and Janet, Rob is completely. He's like, don't bring me more than 3 options, because he knows his vision is so clear and he has so much trust in his casting directors that he knows whatever is brought to him, he can trust that and he can choose from the top 3 to 5.
Yeah, see, that's what I would do if I was a producer.
And that's a great thing. And if I know my filmmaker is like that, then my eye gets real discerning.
Yeah.
And I can totally
Which is what
do that.
You're good at.
Yeah. And I can totally do that. But as of late, I've had filmmakers that really want to see a lot of choices.
So do you find these filmmakers have the same sensibility as you? So like...
Not always.
Not always.
Not always. I've been fortunate that a lot of the directors, and look, the director and the producer and the decision making that happens there, sometimes that's not necessarily aligned. And that is tricky for someone like me who wants to hit that sweet spot of satisfying both. Right? So sometimes, look, a director or a producer usually doesn't want to hire me if we aren't sort of similar in our vision and our taste level and stuff like that. But every once in a while, let's say there's like 3 people that I love and they didn't even get a mention in the, like, when I sent the batch and then when they send back their choices. And sometimes, when I send that batch of selects for them to look at, it's kind of like there's the gamut. There's the people that I think are really good, and there are people that did okay, but maybe I'd want to direct them and see if they can do something a little different, because you want there to be a comparison. Like, you don't know what's great until you see what's good and what's maybe not so good, right? It's that contrast that brings the clarity. So I'm sending kind of a gamut of auditions that I get to them to hopefully, illuminate who is best for the role. And so sometimes, let's say if there's someone that really I was even on the fence about sending to them, and then it becomes one of the producer's favorites, I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about this from the actor side, right? Like, we have a lot of sort of hurdles in front of us, right? Getting a representative. They submit us, getting the audition, getting on board with the casting director after they've seen us a few times and like our work. Mm-hmm. But then we get sent to what I feel like and I perceive from where I'm at, and it sounds like from sometimes this is the case. I don't mean to point at you. Sorry, I'm like, hey.
It was not bothering me at all.
Sometimes, okay, so agent, get an audition, get a relationship with the casting director. This is spanning years now for a lot of actors. And then we get to the producer phase, and it kind of feels like, to me, it's like a lottery ball system once you get there, where like, maybe your number gets called, maybe it doesn't. There's not a lot I can do necessarily to convince the producer one way or not. They're not seeing me come in a lot. Maybe they are after a few more years. But you know what I'm saying? Do you see what?
But it's not the actor's job to convince the producer necessarily.
I know, of course.
It's my job. I mean, or, I feel like, well, okay, so that's the whole thing that I feel like if actors could reframe their role in this process, it might be a lot less painful for you all.
I would agree.
Meaning, like, your job is just to make fans. It's not to actually book the job necessarily.
I agree.
So if you are making fans out of whoever's laying eyes on your audition, even if you're, not right for it or whatever the case is, if you're making fans out of us, we're going to remember you down the line. And quite frankly, like, good acting is good acting. That hypochondriac movie that I was mentioning, there was an audition where the person read the scene completely wrong or completely different from what the director had envisioned. But they were such a good actor. When the director watched it, he was like, they read that completely different than what I want the character to be, but they are obviously so good. Let's just cast them.
Oh, wow.
So sometimes I do have filmmakers that can just see that talent and that ability. And even if you went a different way than we have envisioned, we're still going to recognize what you can bring to the role.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is obviously the healthy perspective. Auditioning is your job. Do what you can in that audition. This fly, I swear to God.
I wonder what is the symbolic meaning of this? There's a fly that wants to join us.
There's definitely something I'm not. That's really funny. I don't remember what I was talking about. But so yes, audition is the job. But at the same time, it's like you want to see those sort of steps, and this seems like a step that's hard to sort of, because we're not getting feedback on the auditions. Sure, we can feel
I try and give feedback.
Oh, tell me about that.
I love giving feedback. Are you kidding?
Do you have the time though? It sounds like you're doing a lot already.
I do.
Wait, what feedback? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, what feedback do you give? Do you give good, really good, and really bad only, or do you?
I only give honest feedback. So it's whatever your performance was. I have no control over whether my feedback is good or bad. It's just honest.
But do we have to ask for it, or do you just go on your way to do it?
It depends. Okay, so that's a great question. Okay, so if I've never said no when a representative has asked me for feedback.
Love that.
So I always give. I mean, it might take me a minute because I have to. If for some reason I don't remember the client, and I have to go back and be like, oh yeah. So there's that. Then I have had situations where the actor is so good or their audition was so great that I just reach out to the agent and I'm like, they killed this. Like, I don't know, like, I anticipate my filmmakers will respond positively, but I can't guarantee that. Whatever happens, just know I was blown away by it,
Yeah.
And then there are times, let's say an actor does something that I view as either unprofessional or just kind of like, I don't want to say wasted my time, but that I didn't particularly appreciate for what I was asking for based on the instructions or whatever. I will reach out and be like, hey, your client XYZ did this next time, or you might want to give them advice so they don't do this for another casting director or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I love that. I feel like, though, most of the casting people I talk to, they're like, well, twofold, I think. They don't have time, but also
we don't have time, but I don't say no is what I'm saying.
Right. I think they don't necessarily want to open the floodgates. And now I'm like, I just might have opened the floodgate for you. For
the reps know that I'm a pretty, like, if you ask me, I'm gonna give you an honest answer. I like to give. I mean, that's what this is all about. It's all about relationship and trust and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not just in this to like be a judgy dream dasher and be like, I'm going to watch all of these auditions and no, and you're the only one that gets in. Like, what is the point? That's not a fun existence for me.
Yeah.
I like to appreciate, what I get to see, and I love discovering new talent. Like I said, even if I don't cast you in this thing, if you really impressed me, I'm excited and motivated to find something else for you to audition for.
Yeah.
I
love that.
Yeah.
And this might be on me too, because I don't think I've ever asked my agent or manager to ask for feedback. You know what I mean?
Right. So would you want feedback maybe in something that you spent a lot of time in? Is that what you're talking about? Like, let's say there's a role you really resonate with, you feel you're perfect for it, and then you put a lot of time and you're like, wow, I did really well in that audition or that self-tape. Is that what you're wanting feedback on? Or are you just wanting general blanket feedback on every audition you ever do?
Of course, I would want specific for specific ones, but at the same time, I've said this before, I just feel like we don't even have a jumping off point, right? So like, and again, I'm pretty good at this, so I can't even imagine the people that tie their happiness to the ups and downs.
Sure.
How hard this is.
Yeah.
But for me, like, if I send in an audition, I hear nothing, and I don't even have.
Yeah, I call it the abyss of the self-tape.
Right, and it's like it's a choose your own adventure of where your thoughts go. Right.
Sure.
But the choose your adventure should start at I fucked up or I did really well, right? And I don't even know which way to split my thoughts from the jump.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit.
Yes, please.
So
free therapy, I love it.
I'll send you an invoice later.
Oh no,
no,
I
I'm
can't
just
afford
kidding.
you.
So,
but you get what I'm saying, like.
But is it? Oh, I really screwed that up, or is it I nailed it, or is it I brought what I'm able to bring in this moment to that material?
Yeah, I was exaggerating. I love hyperbole. I'm an improviser, but it's more like, was I on the right track or was I not on the right track?
But you don't know that because you don't know what the filmmakers like. You can't read our minds.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So because you can't control that, the only thing you can do is offer what you offer, right?
Sure, but back to what we were saying about like that's society at large. Society thinks about what they just did and like analyzes whether it was good or bad. Sure, in a perfect world, we'd compartmentalize our auditions and be like, "Oh, it's done. Have a good day." And a lot of actors I talk to do that. They'll go get an ice cream cone after an audition to sort of button that and say, "Good job." But at the same time,
if you're trying to control something that you know you can't control, then that's simply your ego torturing you.
But I don't think I'm trying to necessarily control it. I'm just trying to learn from it, right? I want to learn from what happened. In fact, I log all my auditions and I write down a note like, what did I learn from this audition or what was my takeaway?
That's amazing. I love hearing that.
When I'm sitting, and it's really easy to let an audition go when you get a new audition, right?
Okay.
But if you have an audition and then a strike happens and suddenly you don't have an audition for 3 months,
sure,
you're thinking about you're hyper focused on that last audition.
So is your question for that last audition that let's say you didn't get any feedback on and you didn't book the job because it's 3 months later or whatever? You want feedback on why you didn't get the job? I'm trying to understand. What's the question?
I mean, the main question is, was I on the right track or was I not on the right track? You know what I mean? Like, did you talked about how when you do give feedback, it's like something that throws you off really bad or whatever. Like, obviously, I assume I'm not that, but I would like to know, was I on the right track? Did I?
But here's the thing, because even if you were not on the right track, if your sensibility or your performance was in the vein of what they wanted, in theory. Now, everyone needs to keep in mind, I'm speaking from feature film, mainly indie space these last however many years. So commercial casting directors,
I don't
network
think twice
TV.
About commercials.
Okay.
Commercials are
TV casting directors, streamer, like they're going to have a different opinion than me. I'm speaking from my lens of what I've been doing for a couple of decades. So it's like, what was the last thing that you just said? Sorry, I lost my train of thought by giving a disclaimer.
I just want feedback about was I on track or not.
Okay, so that was it. It was the on track. Even if you were not on track. So you mean, did I read the scene in the way that you're looking for that character to read the scene?
I mean,
what's your definition of on track? I'm trying to understand.
You're getting very granular right now, and I don't know if I necessarily think of it this way. Because like all I'm saying is like, say that's the first question, on track or not. My brain has to pick one, and then I end up down this weird rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Right? But I don't even know if I'm on the right rabbit hole, and then there's rabbit holes down the rabbit hole. So like, it's just like ends up we're just spinning around thoughts.
Right, and that's sort of my whole point is you can't control any of that because like the example I gave when I was doing that hypochondriac film, that actor that got cast in the film was on the wrong track.
I know.
Wrong. But they were so talented, we saw beyond that track. So that's what I'm saying is like, what is it you're wanting to know? Because if you're showing up in every self-tape, delivering to the best of your ability what you want to offer for this particular role, you're on the right track.
Yeah, I know.
Do you?
I do.
Okay, good.
But, I mean, let's be honest. Commercials I don't think twice about. I realize this sort of...
Well, that's a whole, that's a lottery. That's
what I'm saying. I understand sort of the...
It's part of why I don't cast
how
commercials.
uncontrollable that is. But, and I've booked a lot of commercials, but at the same time, TV is this thing that's still relatively new to me. It took me 5 years or whatever to get a TV audition out here. And then it took me 8 years to get regular TV auditions. And by regular, I mean once a month. So it's still a very novel concept to me.
Yeah, I get that.
And I still haven't broken through. So it's just one of those things where after a certain amount of time, you're just like, am I just doing this wrong or not? Or I can always look at the positives. So-and-so's brought me in multiple times. I've clearly made a fan out of this person. I'm getting once a month. Clearly, I'm doing more than I did 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So I can look at the positives. But at the same time, when I send out an audition, say, I auditioned for Barbie, and then Barbie comes out a year later, and you have FOMO for 8 weeks because they're just advertising it everywhere, and then it does $1 billion, suddenly you're going to remember that audition and be like, why didn't I book that audition? And this is me being completely vulnerable because I don't love talking about this necessarily.
Yeah.
But yeah, then you just start being like, dang, I didn't get any feedback. I don't even know where I was at. I'm just guessing at this stuff, and it's like...
I just think that there are other indicators besides what you're talking about in terms of if you're on the right track or how you did or whatever. Look, the fact that your agent isn't dropping you means that they must think you're doing a pretty good job and they believe in you.
Sure.
How do you feel in each audition and in each self-tape and just in general? Are you feeling good about the performances that you're giving?
Yeah.
Because eventually, I mean, look, there's so many stories like, Megan Mullally didn't get Will and Grace until 11 years of being out here and all that kind of stuff. It's like I think there are more indicators of you having personal success as an actor than what sometimes actors look at in sort of this this ABC. If you're not checkboxing ABC, then you're not a successful actor.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And I think partly too, and I don't mean this to be a pity party at all. I'm doing great.
It's not. No, I love these. I truly love actors. So that's why I want to do whatever I can to encourage those who are in it because of the craft and because they love it and they're passionate about it. I want to give you encouragement to keep going.
Thank you. That's very thank you. Not that I need encouragement is what I'm saying. I'm very happy and I know I do love words of affirmation. But I know all the things I'm doing right and I know how lucky I am and fortunate I am and I have a day job that allows me to, audition and all this stuff. So that all said, I just know that I've ran into these things a couple times that have really challenged that, right? Like one being COVID. I felt like I was starting to peak a little bit audition-wise right before COVID. And two, now this strike, like I was getting some regular auditions earlier this year right before the strike. Sure. And so while I'm just sitting here, and I'm not doing nothing, obviously, I'm still auditioning commercially and I'm doing the podcast and everything, it just feels like it's a stinger because I already struggle to let go of TV auditions. And the way I let go of them is get a new one, really. So... when Barbie comes out in the middle of a strike and it does $1 billion and I'm like, Yeah.
Well, that just wasn't meant for you in that moment for whatever reason.
One thing you do say you love, we got to wrap this up really soon.
Okay, yeah. Stop talking. Jeez.
I know, right? What you said you like talking about this stuff. Like,
I love it.
I've heard multiple casting directors refer to themselves as like therapists too. I think Sherry Thomas said it first on the podcast. Okay. Do you feel like you're a therapist and you say you like that? Do you sort of get that, especially back when actors are coming in the rooms and they were sort of talking about the grind and I just got a parking ticket.
I enjoy human connection.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And within that human connection that I get to have with performers because of my profession, if I can provide clarity or encouragement or support, I am happy to do that. That's just sort of me as a human being. I would do that with players that I coach. I do that hopefully in my friendships. My friends feel like that, So I just in general, I happen to be a casting director, but I just sort of apply who I am as a human being within this arena, So I like talking about it. because I've been doing it for so long, and it's expanded so much and evolved in so many ways.
Yeah.
That's interesting, and I really do love actors. So I just love connecting in that way, just in general. Yeah. Do I feel like I mean, we get on lots of interesting topics. We all have had some interesting lessons that we can share with each other, and I learn from actors too. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's all just an interesting human experience, and we get to make movies in the midst of it, and that's fun for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree, and that's why I like doing this podcast too, because it's like what I'm complaining about is sort of what you alluded to, is like the check boxes. Forget the check boxes, but at the same time, there are those definitely check boxes. Join SAG, get a TV audition.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fun to hear how everyone got there, right? Because some people it takes 25 years, some it takes 5. Some do it this way, some do it that way. Everyone's different.
There's no recipe or equation. Yeah. There really just isn't. I mean, look how I got into casting.
Right.
Because I was
I'm going to send you a letter to get into next film. I think that's the hack.
Right? That's the hack. There really is no recipe or equation.
Yeah.
And if you start overthinking, well, I have to do X, Y, Z, I think that's where you actually delay what could be, because when you tune into your intuition and kind of go with the flow, I think this is in all aspects of life, things just unfold so much better. I mean, even back to the dating aspect, how many times have you been told, if you're on the dating apps and you want to just find that person, you want to just be in a relationship or whatever, and then the second you give up, that's when you find that person. How many times have you heard that? And then, or even with a job or whatever, that's just, anytime we try and force or control based out of fear, it just, the energy can't flow. And then we, end up waiting longer for what we really want.
Yeah. It's very left brain, right brain. I studied engineering in college.
Oh,
so,
really?
I didn't study arts. I studied math, and I want to solve the equation. Yeah. One more question before we get to my last question. Do you, at this point, since you are so comfortable, it sounds like, with your workflow and everything, do you have a casting director minimum fee you charge for everybody? Because this is news to me that associates have a minimum, but directors don't have a minimum, right?
Yeah, I guess we make our own.
Yeah, minimum. Do you have sort of your minimum in your head that you?
In my head, based on, it's based on how many roles, how much time I think it's going to take. It really equates to my time and effort.
You work out an hourly rate in your head, kind of.
Definitely not hourly, because sometimes some material is more challenging than others. If I think it's going to take me more time to cast this particular material because either of what the theme of the story is, and it's sensitive material, or the character is very challenging, or whatever it is, if it's going to take me more time, that's going to be a factor. How many roles? Do you want me to cast 2 roles? You want me to cast 30 roles? That's a factor. Excuse me. What's the budget? So those are all variables that I kind of factor in, and I try and have some, fair compensation for that. But in general, there's kind of a baseline price that I'm really not going to engage my services and what I know I offer, unless it's sort of at a certain
at or above
thing.
That.
Yeah. Okay.
The last question I like to ask is, and I think I might know the answer now, is did anyone take a chance on you?
Oh, Jane and Janet, 1,000,000%, and Michael, who was also part of the company. I was a 19-year-old kid with 0 industry experience, let alone casting experience. And I wrote, a pretty decent letter, and I showed up to the interview, must have sounded semi-competent, and basically just said yes to an internship. They didn't have to do that. And they absolutely took a chance on me.
Are you still in touch with them?
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jane mostly, but I'm forever grateful and try and give them credit wherever I can, because I would not be the casting director I am today without them, for sure.
That's really cool.
100%.
I love to hear that. Do you try now to mentor other casting people?
I would love. Some of my old assistants, I feel like I did mentor a bit, but it's so different now, where, because we don't have an office, and I don't have that day-to-day interaction with an assistant or whatnot. So at this moment in time, I don't feel like I really mentor any aspiring casting directors, even though that would be really cool. At one time, maybe I feel like I did. I keep in touch with a couple of my old assistants who have now gone off to do their own casting stuff, and I love that. But I would say more than anything, I'm probably mentoring actors.
Like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You walked me off the ledge there.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad. I know you're not on a ledge. I can
There was
tell.
no ledge.
I can tell.
This was great, Michelle. I'm so glad we
this was-
finally did
yeah.
it. It took forever, but we finally did it. It was worth it.
perfect timing.
Yeah,
I love it.
Was it
Yeah,
everything
thank
you hoped it would be?
and more?
Okay.
Yeah, no, for real. No,
No,
this was
I
really
appreciate
this
that.
was
That was
really
words
fun.
of
This was really
affirmation,
fun.
so-
It like flew by. I don't even know how much time went by.
We
but-
went over an hour.
Oh yeah, it
went like an
flew
hour
by.
and
Yeah,
5.
no, thank you. This was really really awesome.
You get to do your favorite thing now. You have to do a tail slate here.
A tail slate. Michelle Lewitt, casting director. Is that what you want from me? How tall I am? What position I play in basketball?
MTV and the Channel E. A thing for celebrity.
I'm usually the one giving direction.